Many people know Lois Lane as a hard-hitting reporter as well as Superman's ally and love interest. She is smart, calculating, determined, and brave, but she hasn't always been such a good role model for those of us who look up to her. Back in her early days in the comics, she was much more of a questionably motivated schemer, much more focused on marriage and doing whatever it took to entrap people into helping her get that big scoop. We've also seen so many different versions of Lois Lane over the years, and not everyone has been on par with the upstanding paragon of a journalist we've come to know. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we'll be counting down the top 10 darkest things Lois Lane has ever done, and examining some of her more questionable storylines and actions in the comics. Some that might not be read as favorably in comparison to some of her greatest, most noble moments. And without further ado, let's get counting. Number 10 was a criminal. Yep, remember that time Lois accepted bribes to delay a story and used her bribes to buy fancy clothing, then got found out and was sent to prison pending her trial? No? Well, that's likely because although that all did happen, in the end it was revealed that it was all part of a plot that was arranged between Lois and Superman to nail some crooks. Lois pretended to accept the bribes working alongside the authorities simply to get closer to the head honcho and help Superman and the police capture him. He was the one to help break her out of prison, hoping to intimidate Lois and recapture the evidence she supposedly had on him. Unfortunately for him, Superman crashed the party, following the escape vehicle to his hideout. The authorities arrested him and Lois got rewarded with a fur coat for her troubles. But still, she looked pretty guilty through a lot of it. You only find that out at the end, so if you read like 70% of that story, you're gonna be like, what is happening? Lois, stop accepting these bribes. Number 9. WannaPulitzer. Lois has won many Pulitzers across multiple universes and alternate realities, and while this might not initially sound like such a dark thing to have happened, in the film Superman Returns we learn just what story won Lane her esteemed prize. The subject? How much the world doesn't actually need heroes like Superman. I love how against the original concept of the character this is, while also kind of coinciding with it. Lois originally was a woman obsessed with Superman to the extent of even focusing more on him at times than pursuing the best story. But in Superman Returns she is both fixated with Superman, but not in a lovey-dovey you must marry me type way, not with this story. The title of her piece that won her the prize was Why the World Doesn't Need Superman. Of course, by the end of the film, Lois has kind of changed her mind and writes a piece about why the world does need him. But her first piece still stands. Also, her first piece won the Pulitzer, and the second one, I don't know if she won a Pulitzer for that one. I think they were like, we don't like this one as much. Can you win multiple Pulitzer prizes anyways? Like once you've won one, can you still win more? I think you can. Number 8. Lied about her age. In one continuity, Lois was raised to be tough as nails by her military father, who had wanted sons but ended up with daughters, Lois and her younger sister Lucy. Already instilled with a hard-working ethic when she was just 15, Lois attempted to apply for a job at the Daily Planet, while her father was stationed in Metropolis, where her family was also temporarily living. She lied in an attempt to get hired, claiming to be 19. Lucy rats her out, but Lois ends up securing the job anyways, even though she is too young to be employed there. She's only 15, when she manages to sneak into Lex Luthor's building and steal some files. Also, the rest of that issue is super weird. When Lex catches her, it's weird. I think he spanks her. I think that's like her punishment. He's like, I'm gonna spank you, that'll teach you, young Lois Lane. And then he's like, I hope I meet her in 10 years. And I'm like, that's creepy, Lex. Don't stop that. Stop it. Number 7. Impersonated an actress. In the first issue of Superman's girlfriend, Lois Lane, Lois impersonated the world-famous French actress Lois Lane. She did so to get a big scoop on an ambassador who refused to meet with the press. Back in her early days, Lois was always pulling crazy stunts like this, but this time her act was so convincing and deemed so deceitful by Superman that when he found out about it, he intervened to get back at Lois. Of course, Superman was also kind of being a huge jerk in this issue, as he usually is in this comic, but yeah, both Lois and Superman are they're really always awful to one another at times in this series, as well as everyone around them. Also, Lois does a terrible French accent to impersonate LaFlamme, effectively mocking her while impersonating her. How rude. Like, she even acknowledges that it's a bad accent. She's like, I'm gonna do this terrible French accent to impersonate a real French person. That's so insulting. Number 6. Got between Robin and Batman. In an imaginary story, Lois Lane ends up dating Bruce Wayne, falling in love with him, and marrying him. Superman nor Clark Kent refuses to get in between them as he feels that marrying Lois would actually put her in too much danger. So he's like, I guess I'll just let this happen, I guess I'm fine with it. Super not fine with it. Which is the same excuse actually that Superman feeds Lois for years in the comics while she remains weirdly obsessed with him and marriage. She's like, marry me, and he's like, it'll be too dangerous, and she's like, okay, but you always say that. Give me a better excuse. No, he's only got one excuse. He doesn't want to marry you, Lois, get over it. This is obviously not the Lois we know today, who is a hard-hitting reporter and a more intellectual, career-focused woman. After Lois marries Bruce in the story, she finds out he's Batman, and subsequently, while she and Batman appear to be living happily ever after, isolates Batman's greatest ally, Robin. Her closeness with Bruce causes him to kind of give Robin the cold shoulder, and when the pair have their first child, it's also made apparent to Robin that Batman seeks to have his natural-born son become the heir to the Batman mantle, as opposed to his pal Robin. Harsh. Poor Robin. He's like, but I thought I was like your first son. Batman's like, you're not really my son though. You're just a kid that lives with me. Don't get too attached. Number 5. Poses as a man's dead wife. This story, in all, was pretty awful, but also Lois did help in a weird way. First of all, Lois is sent on a journalist job by Perry White to go undercover to get the scoop on a famous horror film star, Carlos Floyd, and his new wife, Edna Van Cleve III. Lois and Clark are both sent to pose as a maid and a butler, respectively, on Skull Island, where the new couple have just moved. Also, just all of these stories where they're like, we're just gonna pretend to be someone to like infiltrate and get a story because people don't want to talk to us. I'm like, this is bad journalism. Like, I don't think you're allowed to entrap people like this. However, Lois starts to suspect that Floyd may have killed his new bride while she is there, but is making it appear as though she is still healthy and alive for some reason. She dresses up as his dead bride in order to spook him and hopefully prompt him to confess his guilt. However, it turns out that Floyd actually isn't the guilty party. It was Sydney Willis, Edna's lawyer, who was to blame. In fact, Floyd had been making her appear alive in an attempt to catch the true culprit. So he was trying to actually do that with his whole thing. Fortunately, Lois also aids in this, and Willis is apprehended and confesses, but this was a pretty risky move on Lois's part. Like, she was just like, I'm pretty sure he did it, so I'm gonna traumatize this man. And I'm sure it was somewhat traumatizing for Floyd to see her impersonating his wife in the photo that he captured of her until all of this was revealed. And he found out that his wife, wasn't like a ghost trying to haunt him. Be disturbing. Number 4. Ruined a space rocket launch. This is a wow one. I can't believe this happened. As I said earlier, Lois always is so determined to get that scoop. She'll just do about anything. When it comes to reporting on a space rocket, that means faking a fainting spell in order to find a way inside it prior to the launch. No one was allowed inside the rocket, but when she fainted, apparently this was the only place she could be taken to rest. Would like to question if this makes any sense. I'm just imagining that one guy at the launch site just carrying her all the way up the elevator and the flights of stairs to put her in the rocket. Like, that's a long way up you have to go, my friend. Surely there's gotta be like a car or something nearby that they could have put her in. But no, apparently the rocket is the nearest place for her to be safe. Also, you shouldn't even be putting her in there. Whatever, it's fine, it happened. Anyways, once inside, Lois basically stretches out, examining the interior and marveling over how successful and smart of a reporter she is for managing to get inside the restricted area of the inside of the rocket prior to launch. Now, she accidentally hits a little gadget, causing the rocket to fire up before its scheduled launch time, which is actually supposed to be in 2 days. So this is a really early launch. Superman once again uses Lois's mistake as an opportunity to teach her a lesson, which is also pretty awful once more. But Lois also probably cost that space exploration team tons of money. Like, space rocket launches are expensive, girl. What are you doing? Number 3. Tried to kill the Kents. In Blackest Night Superman, Lois Lane of Earth 2 was resurrected as a Black Lantern and was sent to kill the New Earth Kents. She wasn't successful, fortunately, and she wasn't the one pulling the strings behind this master plot, but this probably is one of the darkest things we've ever seen Lois do. In the end, she is one of the Lanterns to join up to take on the JSA. She ends up having to fight Power Girl, who to her was kind of like a daughter, so this is all pretty dark. Number 2. Earth 3. Everything the evil version of Lois Lane from Earth 3 does, is pretty dark. The Earth 3 version of Lois is the villainous hero, Superwoman. She has had multiple affairs and thoroughly enjoys using her lasso of submission to enslave those who oppose her, and even those who don't oppose her. She just likes enslaving people with a lasso. At one point when she is pregnant, she tries to convince both her partners Ultraman and Owlman that they were the father, manipulating them in order to turn them against one another. In reality, the baby wasn't even either of theirs, but was actually from a relationship she had with Alexander Luthor, who was technically the crime syndicate, her League of Villainous Heroes, enemy. Basically, this version of Lois is all about manipulating others in order to satisfy her own selfish desires. Number 1 was racist. Yeah, this story was bad. It comes to us from the issue of Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane 106, which honestly feels like it should be older based on its tone, but it's actually from 1970 if you can believe it. So this story is only 50 years old, and yeah, it's not good. And it also is not aged well at all. Lois is attempting to win a Pulitzer and wants to write about the plights of those living in the Little Africa borough of Metropolis. However, Lois finds no one in Little Africa is willing to talk with her because she is white. So she comes up with a way of getting around that. She asks Superman to use his Kryptonian tech, the Plastimold, to temporarily change the color of her skin, turning her black for the day. Yeah, and it's worse than you think, trust me. One of the worst parts of the story is when Lois asks Superman if he would still marry her if she remained black. Superman does not answer the question but follows it up instead with another question about if she's really asking him that question. An alien, a universal outsider. Is this supposed to be Superman basically saying yes without actually saying it, or is he just trying to avoid the question? Either way, it's not a good look for you, Superman. Lois also responds by calling Superman the right color. Wow, just a million times yikes. Definitely the darkest timeline here. This is like such a bad story. Lois has definitely committed some very questionable acts with some very loose reasoning attached. It seems like she's come a long way in terms of her character evolution, from doing all kinds of crazy things in an attempt to capture Superman's heart or a good story, to becoming a more logical and methodical character when it comes to her plots, and also a more ethical character in my opinion. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.